Hi guys, and welcome to Premier League Prediction Week 10. And we don't have a lunchtime kickoff tomorrow, so we go straight into the 3 o'clock kickoffs. And we have quite a tasty first game here, which is West Ham versus Chelsea. And West Ham obviously going to Crystal Palace last week and winning 3-1. That will give them an absolutely fantastic boost. And they seem to be doing really well away from home this year. They've gone to the Emirates, and they've gone to Anfield, they've gone to the Etihad, and obviously Selhurst Park last week. And but they're at home tomorrow against Chelsea, and even though Chelsea, beat Aston Villa last week, they still didn't look like overly convincing to me. They still just don't look that right to me, Chelsea. And I actually fancy West Ham to win this game tomorrow, so I've gone West Ham 2, Chelsea 1. I bet West Ham at this moment in time, I'm thinking, can they play away every single week, because they're probably top of the league by now if they did. Then we have Leicester versus Crystal Palace. Now, obviously, Leicester really are the comeback kings at the moment, aren't they? Being 2-0 down last week, and then coming to draw 2-2, which is an absolutely fantastic result. And then obviously we have the downside, which is Palace, losing 3-1 at home last week. They won't be happy with that at all. So I've got not many times that you'll see Crystal Palace concede that many goals, and I know that Leicester are quite an open team, but I fancy quite a tight game tomorrow, so I've gone Leicester 1, Palace 1. I think both teams, well, more along the lines of Palace, will probably be a bit more defensive-wise, especially after last week. They'll probably want to work on that. So I'm going for a tight game for that. Then we have Norwich versus West Brom, and obviously Norwich will want to bounce back after losing 6-2 to Newcastle last week. I couldn't believe what I was watching. At the time, it started off really good as well. It was like 1-0, 1-1, 2-1, 2-2, and then Newcastle just absolutely, I think it was 3-1 actually, 3-1, 3-2, then 4-2, 5-2. I just didn't know what the hell I was watching towards the end. It was an absolutely cracker for the neutrals, so I really enjoyed watching it. But I think Norwich want to bounce back, tomorrow after that really hard defeat last week. And I know that West Brom beat Sunderland 1-0 last week. But I fancy Norwich at home tomorrow, to really hit back and get the fans back on side. So I've gone Norwich 3, West Brom 1. Stoke versus Watford, and obviously Stoke will take a massive boost going to the Liberty Stadium on Monday night and getting a result there. Watford, on the other hand, they lost 3-0 to Arsenal. I don't really think they fancied their chances going into that game, so they won't be too downhearted about it. But being at home tomorrow, and given the confidence that I think Stoke are on, I know Watford don't concede many goals, but they conceded 3 last week. Maybe that was just because it was Arsenal. But I have maybe gone a bit over the top this week, because I've gone Stoke 2, Watford 0. As I say, Watford don't concede that many goals, but maybe they'll have one of them weekends where they get quite a few like they did last week. Then we move on to Villa versus Swansea, and obviously, again, Villa wasn't really expected to get much, at Chelsea last week. But they again you come back to Aston Villa, and you're like, when does their season actually start? They had a fantastic start to the season, and then they haven't really done anything since then. It's just like back to how they were when Paul Lambert was there, if you like. Just trying to grind out results and not getting it, and getting scrappy, draws and. Here and there and everywhere. And I just feel like there's just something not going right there at the moment. There's something going on the board, saying that he's got till Chelsea and Swansea. A couple of weeks ago they said he only had till the Swansea game. I'm not sure if that's still the case tomorrow, because if that is the case, then he could be on his way out tomorrow, but I'm not sure. I think it's a little bit unfair on Tim. He had to sell his best players in the summer. Randy Lerner let Christian Benteke, Fabian Delph, and I can't remember who the other one was. They let some of their key players go, and it's really, and if you don't replace them, it's very hard, to sustain anything, especially in the Premier League and stuff like that. So I think Tim should be given a bit more time, but as I say, how much time I don't know. Swansea, on the other hand, they'll be disappointed, not getting a result, especially at home against Stoke on Monday night. But I'm trying to give Villa a bit of luck here, and I think that with Swansea trying to bounce back. So I've gone Villa 1, Swansea 1. Then we have the 5:30 kickoff, which is Arsenal versus Everton, and Arsenal got an absolutely fantastic win against Bayern Munich on Tuesday. And do you know when you have them games and you just sit there at the end and you're like, oh my God, how? That's honestly the question that I was asking myself. You know, and because oh my God, we got run ragged. We absolutely got run ragged against Bayern Munich on Tuesday. It was really, really hard. But so, as it does prove, you know, possession doesn't always mean anything. You know, we had very little possession on Tuesday night and won 2-0. I remember last year, you know, going to Manchester City, we had very little possession and won 2-0 there too. So it really does prove that possession doesn't really mean anything. You know, in this generation at least. I think that might have took a little bit out of Arsenal last week. You know, going all guns blazing out against you know, Bayern Munich and trying to take it out of them, keep themselves into the game. You know, always being on their toes and that. But I still do think that Arsenal will get a result tomorrow. I think they'll just about nick it. So I've gone Arsenal 2, Everton 1. I can't see Everton not scoring. You know, I think they've scored in every single game so far this season, and I think Everton have upped their game too. You know, I read a comment in the week on somebody else's channel saying that Everton play quite boring football, and you know they're quite a boring team and that. Well, I think I've never actually found Everton quite boring. I've always found Everton quite an attacking and entertaining team. But I think this year, you know, they look a bit more stronger, and they look a bit more willing to keep going to the finals as well. Like Baggy going to West Brom was a perfect example. You know, being 2-0 down and coming back to win 3-2. You know, that just shows great character and great fighting spirit. So I'm not quite sure where their comments come from, but there you go. And we have a cracking Sunday. You know, with 4 games. We have obviously the derby, which is Sunderland versus Newcastle, and that's going to be a really interesting game. You know, with Newcastle winning 6-2 last week, and I know that Sunderland lost 1-0 to West Brom last week. But one thing I forgot to mention last week as well, which Sunderland fans do have the right to tell me off for this, because I mentioned Klopp being a new manager for Liverpool. I didn't, on the other hand, mention Sam Allardyce for Sunderland. So my apologies for that. So what I will say is, and the reason I mentioned that was because this is going to be quite interesting, isn't it? You know, with Sam Allardyce being the ex-manager of Newcastle and now he's the manager of Sunderland. I'd really love to know how that's going to go down on Sunday. But I've gone for quite a really entertaining game for this one, and I think it's going to be quite good for the neutral point of view. You know, I think the neutrals will enjoy this. You know, because I've gone Sunderland 2, Newcastle 2. I can see goals going everywhere, all guns blazing, and you know, basically. But I'm still not overly convinced by all the defence and you know how they're defending at the moment. As I say, they won 6-2 last week, Newcastle, but they've still got them sloppy goals in them. You know what I mean? And I'd say the same with Sunderland too. But I think with Sam Allardyce going to Sunderland, they'll definitely improve in the defensive part of things. As I say, they only just about lost 1-0 last week, so that was kind of an improvement, if you like. But we'll see. Then we go to Bournemouth versus Tottenham, and that's the 2:05 kickoff. We have 2 5:2 kickoffs actually. That's the first one. And the way that Bournemouth are attacking at the moment, and I think that also, it kills me to say this sometimes, but you know, Spurs have turned their season around a little bit. You know, they're starting to look lively now. You know, winning a couple of games, putting a few results together. And I fancy Spurs, you know, on Sunday. I've gone Bournemouth 0, Spurs 2. I think the way Bournemouth keep playing at the moment is 4-4-2. I think Spurs will probably rip them, to be honest. You know, I think they've ripped Manchester City and, you know, all the other teams that they've ripped this year. I think they can definitely rip Bournemouth. But, you know, that's not always football, so we'll see how that goes. Then we have the another really, really tasty derby, which is Manchester United and Manchester City. That's the other 2:05 kickoff. And as I said a couple of weeks ago, you know, when it was Arsenal versus Manchester United, that both teams are quite vulnerable when it comes to defence. I really do feel that Manchester United are quite vulnerable at defence, in the defence department at the moment. And you know, I know it's a derby and you can't always go on, you know, defence and running form and stuff like that. I know people always say that form goes out the window when it comes to derbies and stuff like that, but I do fancy Manchester City to win this one tomorrow. I think people are going to probably raise a few eyebrows at me for this one. To not even go a goal for Manchester United at Old Trafford, because I've gone Manchester United 0, Manchester City 2. I don't know what it is. I don't know if that's maybe more of a guess than, more than analysing it, because I don't know. I just feel that even with the Sergio Aguero at the moment, I still just think Manchester City are really are still quite strong this year. Kevin De Bruyne is still knocking them in. Sterling's knocking them in, and I just feel that they'll find Manchester United quite comfortable on Sunday. But as I say, you can't always go on form, and maybe Manchester United will raise the game. But as I say, it's probably more of a guess more than anything. So that don't get too downhearted about it, United fans. And the last game on Sunday, which is the 4:15 kickoff, which is Liverpool versus Southampton, and it will be Klopp's first Premier League game in charge of the Anfield, and I think Liverpool will just about nick it. I've gone Liverpool 2, Southampton 1. So that has been my predictions for this week, guys, and just a quick brief announcement as well. This is just like a video like every week that I just give my verdicts, my opinions on what I think that the scores will be. I don't really analyse games. I don't work for Match Today. I don't work for Sky, so I'm not a pundit, stuff like that. I mean, I had somebody comment on one of my videos last week saying that this is a waste of time and there's more qualified people to do these jobs than me, stuff like that. Well, yeah, there is, because at the end of the day, I don't represent a company. I don't represent things like Arsenal Fan TV, 4x Devils, or anything like that. I'm just a normal guy with a YouTube account, just once a week giving his score predictions on a piece of paper, and that's all it is really. I mean, like you've seen with the Manchester United Man City game, I haven't really analysed the situation. I'm just guessing more than anything. So just someone to come out and say that I'm not qualifying, it's a waste of time, and I'm worth more than this. Well, at the end of the day, you don't really know me as a person. So I got a bit offended by that, to be honest, because this isn't a daily job or anything. It's just something I do once a week, and I find it quite enjoyable too. There's nothing wrong with a normal guy like myself who supports a football team and just gives my predictions and guesses on scores every single week, and that's all it is. And I find it fun. I have mates on Facebook and sometimes mates on YouTube that will comment and say, I really enjoy these videos, and keep going. They're quite fun. It's something different too. Some people will like sit there and analyse things and and do stuff like that. And I just read scores out, and that's it. At the end of the day, I'm not, as I say, I don't work for Sky. I don't work for Match Today. I'm not a pundit. I don't get paid for this. It's just something I enjoy, and just have a good guess at results every single week. So that has been my predictions for this week, guys. If you do like it, please do give it a thumbs up, and I will see you next week for next week's predictions. Thank you for watching, guys.